Thank you folks for coming tonight. Bear with me, I've got a nasty cold, so I hope I don't lose my voice. Next, we have a roll call.
Fish. Hausman. Jones.
Here.
McInerney. Parsons. Wells. Mayor Beasley.
Okay, with that said, we have enough to move forward, so we will start with approval of tonight's agenda, pages 1 through 3.
Aren't we removing one though, 9A?
Yes, we will be tabling 9A to the next meeting, which is a proclamation for Safety Month, which is in May, so the mayor can be here to do that.
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve with that change, removing 9A.
I have a motion from Hausman, second from Parsons. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have approval of the March 15th briefing meeting, the March 19th regular meeting, and the March 20th equalization meeting on pages 4 through 13.
Motion to approve. Second.
A motion from McInerney, second from Parsons. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have the approval of this evening's claims on pages 14 and 15.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion from Hausman, second from Wells to approve tonight's claims. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we will move forward to the consent calendar. On the consent calendar tonight, we have tracks 2A, 2B, 3A, 4A, 4B, and 5A of the Westview Estates, which you can find on pages 16 through 21. I'll need a motion.
Move to approve.
Have a motion from Parsons, excuse me, second by Fish, to approve tonight's consent calendar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we will move down to our visitor and timed items, and we have a public hearing, and bear with me because we're going to do all these as one, so I'm going to read them all together. We have a public hearing to transfer retail malt beverage from Blinky's Casino to MG Oil at 1201 East Teakwood. From a transfer of wine from Blinky's Casino to MG Oil at 1201 East Teakwood, a transfer of retail malt beverage from Joker's Casino to MG Oil at 1309 East Cedar, and a transfer of retail wine from Joker's Casino to MG Oil at 1309 East Cedar. Was there anyone here that would like to speak on that? None being seen, I will ask for a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion from Hausman, second from Parsons, to approve those transfers. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Those motions carry. Is there anything else tonight for visitors and timed items? Okay.
MG oil or MB?
MG Oil, they're a company out of Rapid City.
Okay, there's just a misprint. Okay.
Well, you guys are just making it too easy for me tonight. We will move forward to our committee reports.
Oh, is that tonight?
All right. Well, there we go. So we will start with the golf course committee report. John?
Not quite open yet.
It was open Friday.
Gary played on Friday.
It's getting closer.
That was,
It was the official. It was official, non-official.
not open for the season quite yet. But actively working out there, getting things ready to be up and running as soon as we have some nice weather.
Well, hopefully when we get up tomorrow morning, we won't judge our spring weather by that. So, anything else, Mr. McInerney? Okay. We will move forward to the police committee report. And since we tabled A, we will go to B. Chief, if you'd like to talk to us about your patrol vehicle purchase. which you'll find on page 40.
That kind of speaks for itself. We're looking at doing is replacing our 2010 Chevy Tahoe with a 2018 Chevy Silverado. It'll be a pickup truck, obviously. And it's a little bit over the budget. I think we had 31,000, but we've got enough money in other areas within that vehicle area to cover the difference. Vehicles came in a little bit higher on the bids this year than they have in the past.
But as we talked about on Thursday night, you'll be able to transfer some of the equipment from the Tahoe to the Silverado. which
Yeah,
will save us some money.
being it's the same, pretty much the same setup, all of our mounting brackets and everything should be able to transfer over without us having to buy new ones. We are going to put a prisoner transport cage in the new one. That's something that we have not had in the Tahoe.
Well, with that being said, and I trust the chief that with that equipment that we will come in at budget, I will make a motion to approve that purchase. Motion for myself, second for Mr. McInerney. Any other conversation? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, chief. Next, we move on to salary adjustments. So thank you for continuing to stand so we can.
Kind of expected that. Officer Kyle Zegan, our latest addition to the force, he successfully passed his state LET reciprocity testing, and I got to give him a lot of credit. It required a lot of study time, which pretty much did on his own, and came in with I think I reported it before, 89% on that test, which was very, very good. And so the proposal is to advance him with that certification that he now has. He's got 1 week that he has to do in Pierre, and that's just a formality. He's going to be doing that yet this month to move him from step 1 to step 2. And at the same time, Officer Baker, who has been on 10 months longer than Officer Zegan, and he was certified some time ago, and I would move him from step 2 to step 3.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
A motion from Hausman, second from Wells to approve those salary adjustments. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Anything further?
Anything exciting going on?
They had a whole bunch of accidents this morning in Sioux Falls.
That's,
We didn't have any here, so
well,
real
let's
happy
hope
about that.
that carries forward
Carries forward.
through tomorrow morning.
We did have a fire.
We did have a fire. No one was injured, so that's a good turnout.
Thank you, chief. And you will notice March's inspection report on pages 42 and 43. Brian, was there anything on there that you wanted to touch base on? Okay, that being said, we will move to item number 10, Park and Rec Committee report. Barb, you had a report for tonight?
Yes.
So we had our meeting on the 26th. Councilman Hausman came and made her pitch about the the flower baskets.
Thank you, Joe, for doing that.
You are welcome.
That's kind of a running joke between her and I. So Devin had a thought about moving them to Holly instead of Split Rock, because Split Rock, they're up so high and the wind blows through Split Rock and dries them out. So we're going to move them to Holly this year and see how that plays out and then reassess the situation. So they will be on Holly. We don't have quite enough for every pole, so we'll just alternate them and see how that goes. And the baseball field, if you haven't been over there, great progress being made, grandstands up. If the weather will cooperate, they will be able to get in and playing on May.
It does look very nice. I was down there this weekend and looked at it.
So they're doing a great job with that. You know, we've been talking about that public survey for what other amenities we want in the parks. That's going to be going out through the school system. They've agreed to help us out with that soon. And then it's going to go in the May watering bill, I think, Christina, we decided. And then hopefully the newspapers can help us with that too. So you'll start seeing that. We are asking for one entry or comment per email address. Softball is replacing the fencing on a bunch of the fields. I think I had mentioned that before. One thing that we struggle with is the turf along Holly Boulevard, you know, in the right-of-way. We just can't keep that green. And so Devon's working with Kelly, I think, right, for overseeding. They have some ideas about overseeding those areas to try to get them looking better. There's no water there, so it's a challenge to keep those looking nice. So we're working on that. And then we had the opportunity to have Justin Oakland come in. He is developing that Fouth land on Sioux, and I think we have some nice opportunities there to make some walking paths or street connections, and so we're going to work with him closely on that development to see if we can get some connectors through there, because then eventually we want that second entrance out of Aspen. So he and David Locke from Stockwell, and then John Jacobson, who is our chair of Park Board, who is a landscape architect, are going to work on that along with Brian. So we're excited about that. And the final thing is Devon did some surveying of smaller cities in the state about, you know, how do they handle picnic tables and shelters and, you know, rentals and all that sort of thing. So we're going to work on how to handle that stuff. In the past, most of it has been complimentary, but maybe we need to relook at that. And so we don't have anything in place, but he did reach out to other communities just to see what they do. So we'll be getting back to you with that. And Arbor Day is the 27th, but oftentimes we do it at a different point in time just because of the weather. So anybody have any questions?
I saw the hockey has a chance to get $150,000.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't see that.
yeah.
From?
That drawing or
There's a national contest,
something, yeah.
vote online, so if the community, the more we're involved, the better chance they have.
Oh,
There's a video.
so do we have, how did you see it? How is it out?
It was on the news or something.
It's on the 13th and 14th of April, and they have a chance to win $150,000. They're in the final four. This has been like a four-stage process. Sure.
TJ Cameron, 2417 East Lopez Lane. So the Hockey Association has an opportunity to win up to $150,000. It was like a four-stage contest where they had to keep getting voted in.
Okay.
It's put on by Kraft,
Okay,
and essentially we have to share on Facebook as a community, vote for them. It opens on the 13th and 14th, and if they're awarded the winner, there's only 4 communities, then 2 things happen. One, they can get a $150,000 grant for improvement of their facilities, and 2, we would host an NHL game in Brandon.
Wow.
Yeah, preseason, but still, pretty cool for a small town. So it's a really big deal. The more publicity we can give it as a community, the better, I think. It's shared on the Hockey Association's website,
okay,
and there's a link to the Kraft that gives all the details. There's a video about Brandon where they did some aerial shots over the hockey arena and talk about our town a little bit and stuff like that too.
okay, so how else can we get it out?
So there's a video on Facebook also that has the link for that website to go vote when time is right. So that's where I saw it. Maybe if those who have seen it or saw it on there can share it so it kind of gets spread around. I know that would be,
Can
yeah.
we put it on our
Yeah.
Facebook?
What the only city can do is share it on our Facebook.
I can let Park Board know about it. that, so we need to tell as many people as possible.
And the Hockey Association started like a Facebook event so that people can add it to their calendar, because it's only 2 days. It's the 13th and 14th. So, you know, as much as we can encourage people to, it'll give them a little reminder.
The other thing we might want to do is at the polling stations, given the timing, just have a sign or something that reminds people to go out there the next day.
I think, yeah, there shouldn't be anything within regulations or voting regulations.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, the money goes to the Hockey Association, but it'll totally benefit our community if they happen to win.
Well, they've been doing a stellar job of raising funds for their goals, so anything we can do to help would be tremendous.
I'll see if they've talked to the school, maybe the school would send it out. I'll talk to Dr. Larson.
Thanks, TJ.
I guess the other thing I heard, Barb, which was awesome, is overseeding on Holly. But obviously the concern there is water, so I don't know if, I know Gal Babies have that water truck that they drive out and can just spray from the side of the road, so I don't know if we can, Devin, I don't know if there's others that have that same thing, or if we can talk to them about doing it just once a week and or a couple times just to get the seed going, but.
Yeah, I figured if you get going early in the spring, the seed is going to be a different, more hardy seed meant for boulevards, things like that. So, fertilized.
Right, but if it costs us, I don't know, $1,000 to do the watering all summer or something, I would just encourage us to do whatever we need to do to get that stuff to take, because it looks terrible.
It does, I agree.
Well, Devin, if we're watering the flowers on Holly, would that be something we could do in conjunction with the flower watering? I don't know.
That tank is, I think, the same size as the one you guys water the flower. The one that John's referring to, I think, is the same, almost. It's square versus round, but I think they're about the same size, aren't they?
We're going to have a whole different setup.
Yeah, this one you can spray from your side,
Yeah.
just without even getting out, just drive and spray, so.
We can look into it. To me, that just seems like I have one person tied up on Holly.
All day.
We can sure look into some sort of options,
Yeah, even if we have, reach out to Gal Babies even, so it doesn't take, an FTE of ours, just see what it even cost, or, so. They're gonna drive by there every day anyways, on their way out to do their job, so.
Okay, I'll work on this hockey stuff with my resource. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Barb. Okay, next we have summer staff.
Recommending hiring 4 people, Kenny Cunert at $13.05 an hour, Dave Lee at $11.85 an hour, Noah Holm at $10.65 an hour, and Misty Becker at $11.50 an hour.
Well, they're tried and true.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Hausman, second from Parsons to approve summer staff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else, Parks, Barb? Okay. That being said, we'll move on to the administration committee reports. On page 45, you will see the parade routes for this year. And it is the same as it has been, correct? So we do need any form, we do need a formal action.
I'll second it.
Motion from Parsons, second from Wells to approve this year's parade route. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is Family Fun Day, which you'll find on page 46.
This will follow the parade on Sunday, May 6th. Starts at 2:30 to 5:30. Sponsored by Circuit Fitness down at McCarty Park. Similar event last year. I can't remember when they had it last year. It wasn't after the parade, though. October, that's right.
They have it at the middle school.
Well, I think it's an awesome idea. Well, let's pray for good weather, because on a day that it would, the weather would be nice, it would be greatly attended.
Yeah, we had snow that
Hey now.
We've had just about every kind of weather there is. I've been sunburned in that parade too. Do we need a motion
Yep,
on
because
this?
they'll be using the park.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I Motion from Hausman, second from Wells to approve Family Fun Day down at McCarty Park following the parade. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have election worker change, page 47. No, you go back out and come back in. It'll bring it back up.
Third is changing out.
Yep, Stacy Quimby will be taking over for William Kemner.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion from McInerney, second from myself to approve that election change. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Text notices on page 48.
Christina and I have had two sessions one with My Town Text and the second one with Textedly. Both of them offer texting services so that we can contact residents if they so choose. They can opt into receiving text messages from the city, whether it be watering conditions, water main breaks, snow plowing, snow emergencies, street closures, construction projects, golf course, etc. Both of them are fairly similar in cost. My Town Text was $50 a month and 4 cents a text. Textedly, we'd be looking at probably the elite plan that's there, $55 a month, and that's up to 5,000 texts, and then it's 1 cent per text, up to 140 characters. If we go up to 306 characters, it's 2 cents, and if we send pictures or videos, I believe it's 3 cents. So our recommendation is Textedly. Primary reason is My Town Text ties up a phone line, and it takes about 4 or 5 seconds for each text to go out. So anticipating, City of Madison has about 800 people on theirs. So 800 texts by 5 seconds will tie up a phone line for a significant amount of time. Textedly will not. It goes out automatically over the internet. So our recommendation is to go with the elite package, $55 a month for up to 5,000 texts.
Well, I want to say thank you for taking the time to do this, because I think this is an awesome communications tool, and heaven knows that, you know, communications is something that we talk about on a meeting-by-meeting basis. So I will make a motion to move forward with Textedly.
I'll second it.
Motion from myself, second from Mr. Parsons.
How will we collect the phone numbers then?
They will opt in. We'll get word out on our Facebook page, in the media, on our website, that if people are interested in receiving text from us, they'll just need to text in a certain set of numbers to a number, and they will be automatically in the text alert.
Something to maybe think about. We didn't talk about this today, Brian, but maybe by then, this conservation committee, it might be too late for that, but maybe have some information with that phone number on it that's handed out for the parade.
We'll start getting it
I don't
set
know
up
if that's an option.
the rest
but-
of this week, so we should
Okay.
have the information available.
Okay. And I don't mean necessarily add it to the items that they're ordering, but maybe, you know, just a small slip of paper or something. That might be a way of getting that information out as
Yep.
well. Because along with Blaine, I'm really excited about this. I think this is true progress in motion that's going to make an impact. It's going to have a heavy impact, and I am really glad to see this moving forward.
But we don't want to overdo it, as you've mentioned
Yes,
several times.
yes, I will complain till I'm blue in the face if we abuse the system, because at that point, I think people will start to just ignore the messages,
No,
like I do with the schools. But I don't think that'll happen. I'm quite confident this will work well for us, so.
Well, I think it's just another frontline method of us to be able to get our especially our very important communications out from City Hall to those people that truly want it, so.
Yeah. And keep in mind, you know, over the past year especially, we've heard complaints about communication, right? I personally feel like there's not much else we could do. Having said that, if somebody has an idea out in the community that, you know, like this, if somebody has an idea, I think I speak for all of us. We're here to listen, because these things do make a difference, and I think the city is making every effort possible to communicate issues with the residents, and I'm excited to see this.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yes. Next, item E, we have AAA collections agreement. We talked about this briefly, but Brian, if you want to highlight that.
I would probably just say that since it came to my attention on Thursday, there's a lot of undefined terms in here that I think we need to negotiate. I'm not ready for you guys to sign this contract.
Okay.
There's just too many ambiguities, so
Okay.
I need some time to work with AAA Collections on revising the draft that they sent to us.
That's fine. We will table it to the next meeting.
I guess I'd prefer to just discuss, I guess my thoughts to begin with were that we shouldn't be doing this type of thing for a small debt collection. I'd prefer not to kind of, I don't want to call it get into business, but utilizing a third-party debt collection agency it's a big step in what we're talking about in terms of dollars that were actually outstanding are very small. So I view it's a significant step outside the box that, in my opinion, we don't really need to take. In my opinion, small loss charge-offs are a cost of doing business, that we should just be writing off these debts if it's been more than a couple of years. I can certainly see us implementing a policy or anything that, you know, if the dollar amount's say above $500, then we could look at doing something like this. But when we look at the next page, the collection write-offs we're talking about are $120, $30, $100. We're giving them, you know, a certain percentage of that. It just seems to me that the increase, you know, we don't have a lot of, you know, reputation risk, but there is other legal risks like, you know, FDCPA violations, all those certain things for what we're getting out of it at the end of the day, which might be 50, 60, 80 bucks at the end of the day when recovery rates are like 5%, 10%. I just don't view it as worth it. I'd prefer that we just write these off.
Thank you, John. Is there any other discussion? We will
Well,
table this.
I don't want to spend a bunch of your money negotiating terms to contract if, because I've heard one comment, and if you want me to go forward, I can negotiate it, but I don't know where the council's at with that, so.
Well, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to, staff came forward with this and is trying to get these collected, but as John said, the biggest one is under 500 bucks, so by the time we have staff time involved and attorney time, I guess at this point I would forego it myself, but.
I agree with those comments and also with John's about setting some sort of minimum, like $500, $1,000, something like that.
I guess I would agree too. If you look at these, I mean, these go back to 2014. So,
And you know, when you're saying this threshold, if what you're saying is you want to only use AAA when the threshold is over 500, then we're still going to need a contract with them. We have other avenues. I mean, we can go get a judgment against them in small claims court. We're going to have to execute on the judgment and try and get the money. But in terms of if what you're wanting is a threshold before we assign the accounts to somebody like AAA, then we're still going to need the contract. But if what you're saying is until we get a bunch of these that are more than some set amount, let's not enter into a contract with an outside agency to collect them.
Yeah, I guess I'd prefer just not sign the contract yet or even develop one, but, so this goes back 3-4 years, we don't have one above $500. So at the point we have one that's above 500, let's readdress the conversation. Maybe that's when we just get our own internal legal team involved and we don't have to sign a contract with an external agency. I mean, third-party collection agency is just not an area or an industry that I think we want to be involved with personally, is my thought.
I guess I agree with John. So, do we have a consensus here from the sounds of things? This is not something that we want to move forward with?
If it's all less than 500 bucks.
So what are we talking about, 1,100 bucks in total?
Yeah, obviously, we're not saying 500 total. We're looking at 500 per incident or a total number over of whatever. But I mean, I can understand what you're saying. That's a whole nother business to be in. And
So Lisa, from the sounds of things, the consensus is we will not move forward with the contract with AAA. So Okay, moving forward, utility bill write-offs, which we were just talking about. Brian, did you want to address that?
If you are not going to move forward with the AAA collections, then I would change this, because I would not write off the ones that are where the water is shut off, because when the water is shut off, we can collect it at the time that the water turns on. There are some that's been shut off for, well, the oldest one is since 2014. So I'd probably change which ones we would write off and which ones we would keep on the book.
How does that work then? If say, I'm not gonna call any of these out specifically, but that address, that property, obviously they don't live there anymore. So you're saying when the property is sold and the new owner come in, is there a lien against it that the new property owner is responsible for?
Utility bills are against the property, not against the property owner.
Okay. So is that something they would need to disclose and they?
They should, but they won't know that because a lot of these are after closing, the final bill. So it's been closed, the new people are taking possession. We go out and read it on closing day, send a bill to the previous owner, and then they don't pay it. So technically we could. Now we try not to.
I would certainly prefer that not to occur. I don't think that's a very good welcoming.
I'm going to move forward with the AAA collection so we could do that with some of those and.
But we could implement a process to forego that, right?
What's that?
I mean, we could implement a process with some sort of language to forgive or forego that debt upon transfer of ownership. Because you're right, I mean, welcome to Brandon. Hey, here's your first interaction with the city. You get a bill that you.
Yeah, I mean, do other cities forego that immediately upon closing, any outstanding balances previous? You know, I definitely agree with that.
I don't think you'd want to set that policy that if somebody that's selling the property doesn't want to pay their last bill, we just write it off, because there are hundreds of properties that are sold every year in town.
Well, and I agree. And I think what we're doing here tonight is just having an open conversation about how do we move forward with this. I don't think there's anybody saying that's what we want to do.
You can implement like a time frame, like a year after or whatnot, or obviously, it's clear we don't want to just do it.
We certainly don't want to set that precedent,
No.
because if we do, it's going to open up a Pandora's box that will never get closed again.
Can't you tie it to the title so at payout, at closing, they have to pay it?
We do
It's
get
on
calls,
certified.
when a house closes, we will get a call whether there's a lien against the property. Now, the ones that have a water off, or the water's off and there's nobody living there, then we'll say yes, that it needs to be paid. If they're past due, then we'll say yes as well. Some of these are, like Brian said, they've had the closing, we've done the final, they've moved out and moved on, but they won't pay the final at all. We've tried, we've mailed them several times, we've tried to call them, tried to email them, they just won't pay the final.
Isn't that where you were saying, Lisa, if we got the judgment ahead of time
Move
against the
forward with a
property?
Civil case.
We can institute a civil case to get a judgment against them and then try and execute on the judgment. It doesn't go against the property, it goes against the person that.
Yeah, because if they try to buy another place.
But then what's that?
I mean,
Yeah, I certainly don't want to, set the precedent that we're loosey-goosey on this kind of stuff, but like John said, welcome to Brandon, and here you go, here's your former water bill. Gee, some way you've got to change that.
I mean, it's just one of those natural, nobody likes feeling they get taken advantage of and that these folks are kind of stealing from the city and by our good graces and taking advantage of that. But, you know, just based on the evidence here, clearly it doesn't happen very often. So I don't view it as a big issue unless I wouldn't try and implement a process that can get kind of.
I can see, though, that looking at you guys, though, this is a point of interest, and it's something that we need to deal with, so.
It doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, it would be nice to send it off to AAA Collections to collect. We cannot, on these older ones, we cannot set a fee in the future, like if we would approve AAA Collections agreement, I would probably bring a resolution forward saying if your bill should go towards AAA Collections, we would charge you $30 in order to do that, which would help collect the money that AAA Collections is keeping for their fee. We can't do it ones on the past ones, but we could do it moving forward, if
There's always, I mean, there's obviously positive and negatives each side, but you know, you think about the other, I can paint stories that are completely negative, right? If we turn it over to AAA Collections is actively harassing them and calling them all the time, sending them letters, violating FDCPA. These people go on social media, they go out to the news and says, the city of Brandon, you know, because it's the city of Brandon debt, right? And they're going after me for $50. They're tracking me all across the country. They call me every 2 minutes. You know, it makes us look bad in the light of day at the end. I just don't see to me, that risk far outweighs, you know, the fact that we might get $75 out of these people and or the improvements in some of our processes, so.
Christina, you've obviously talked with AAA. What kind of success rate do they have? I'm sure they have a published rate that they are able to retain.
I'm not sure. I haven't talked to her for a while, so I guess I'm not sure on that.
It's got to be low. I can tell you in the credit industry, it's less than 10%. And the difference here between the credit industry and this is the credit industry actually reports on a credit bureau.
Right.
So the likelihood you're going to get paid on that is got to be 10 times higher than this. It's a water bill. It doesn't even, it doesn't affect their credit rating. It doesn't affect their ability to get loans, you know, anything like that. So.
In the past, we just have been able to assess it to the county on their property tax bill. We cannot do that anymore, so this was kind of another avenue I was trying to find to collect some of these, because we aren't able to assess it to the county anymore because of some law changes and some.
Is there a possibility that that might change back?
We'll talk with the league and see if they can sponsor some legislation, because historically the county has collected these bills as special assessments. And now it's a trend throughout the state. The county treasurers are refusing to do it.
I mean, everybody else is going to be the same rule.
They are.
Yeah.
It's probably a labor issue, I would assume.
I don't foresee the legislature changing, because the counties are going to give some pushback on that. But
Yeah, one last note is I agree with what everyone's saying. The other end of the spectrum is if people aren't held accountable, will this list be 5 times longer 5 years from now? That's the other end of this that I think is important to consider.
I agree, and I don't
know. I'm just
I don't think
throwing
I've
it
heard
out
that
there.
up here tonight, that we're not trying to hold people accountable. I think we're just looking for a different avenue. You know, and I think judging by just the pure number that we're seeing here, we don't have a big issue, and we certainly don't want it to get any bigger. So we do have to keep this conversation going. I just, from the sounds of things, from what I'm hearing from the council, AAA collection is not the avenue that we want to go.
I'd rather see us go the judgment route to start.
I agree, just a civil action. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we will move forward to item G, which is liquor law changes.
Right now, our liquor laws basically follow the state law. Effective July 1st, state law allows on-sale liquor sales on Christmas Day and Memorial Day, which is a new change. It's been prohibited in the past. So with lacking council action, our on-sale licensees can sell on Christmas Day and Memorial Day. So if you want to change that and restrict that back the current way, we need to pass an ordinance. So if you don't want to do it, you don't need to.
I'm okay with the waiver.
Okay.
I mean, with the new law.
They want to buy it on Christmas?
Yeah. I would agree. Okay,
All right,
engineering discussion.
We talked last meeting about the vacant city engineer position, and that we probably should get moving in one way or another to fill it. You know, anticipating at least a 90-day process between advertising, interviews, and hopefully the person is gainfully employed currently, so for them to leave their other job, they'll need to give notice. So we really need to get moving. I gave you the job description at the last meeting. Chuck had sent out his kind of thoughts on the city's engineer position.
Well, I guess I'm going to
I sent
reiterate.
those out, a couple of weeks ago. I'm a big proponent that we keep on with the position. We may want to tweak it a little bit, but I'm a firm believer that we need to keep on with the position.
I would agree with that. I mean, just having gone through what we're going through just with this topic of water, I think a city engineer is probably invaluable. I agree, yes, that maybe that job description, we can tweak it or change it a little bit. I see it more becoming more in the coming years, more of a project manager. But I just, again, having done the homework that I did to get the Water Development Committee to where it is, and what I mean by that is calling around and talking to other cities, many other cities, about how they're structured. A city engineer makes sense, and it's the way most folks go. I'm not saying we follow suit just to follow suit, but I think there is a rhyme and reason behind it. So I agree. I think I would like to see us get someone hired as an engineer in place sooner than later.
Well, with that being said, I guess, Brian, I'll pose this to you. We need to have that job description in place, and so next meeting, or whatever the case may be, we can make that advertisement. From the sounds of things, it sounds like the consensus of the council is that we want to move forward with that, but we want some changes. So whether in email form or direct communication with Brian, let's get that done. Let's get that so we can move forward. We certainly can't do that at this meeting, but we'll need to approve that job description before we can move forward. And keep in mind that there's been a lot of discussion, and there's also been some discussion about some development part of that position too, so also keep that in mind. So I think you have your answer, Brian, and we'll work with you to get that job description done so we can get going next meeting.
As long as they have an open door policy like Paul did. Because, the bottom line is some of these decisions, I mean, we all work in different sectors of our economy, and some of these decisions I'm not an expert in, and I would very frequently walk into Paul's office and tell me, here I am, what do you think? Tell me what, and I think that's a very valuable thing to have in our tool bag. I really
agree.
think it was helpful.
My point would be, before we do that, then let's make sure that we have a defined process for this person, so this person knows who they report to, what exactly their job is, and we realize, when we developed this position, and believe me, it took years to develop this position, we knew that this was a beginning process, and that it would morph. So right now is our time to take a look at that again and really define it. So thank you, guys. Okay, we will move forward to the street committee. You see the work report. And we'll just move forward. We're not going to talk about the forecast.
I was going to say, I'm sorry to report, they might see snow plows out tomorrow.
Oh, she had to say it. I was trying to move forward without using the word. I was...
We're in the video.
I'm just going to say, hopefully it's the last.
I don't see Raleigh, but was there anything else, Brian, for streets? Okay. Go to the Water and Sewer Committee reports. Mr. Wells, you are up.
Sir, I'll make this fairly short. I just handed out the logo, the winning logo and slogan that were voted on. The Water Conservation Subcommittee came to us with two options. Option number 1 was the winner, which is being passed around. Council members, you have it, and it's on my computer, hopefully, unless it's dead. It's on my computer as well still. So the new logo is Water Smarter. At our last meeting, we took an update from the Conservation Subcommittee. A lot of things to talk about, but most of the impactful ones we've discussed, as far as, we're going to be discussing here in the next few minutes, so I won't go over those. The bottom line is, at our last meeting, we mostly spent most of our time discussing the Big Sioux Aquifer as another alternative, or in addition to where we get our water, using it as a water source. I felt it was necessary to bring people in and discuss that, so that we're all up to speed on what the Big Sioux Aquifer is, versus the Split Rock Creek Aquifer, versus MCWC, versus Sioux Falls, etc. Just to build our understanding, so that when this RFP does come back, we can make an informed decision. So I'll leave it at that. That's the majority of our meeting was spent talking about that. The video is online. Aside from that, some of the points I have on my agenda to update you for this, we're going to be talking about here in a few minutes. Again, I'm thankful that the city and everyone and council has worked together to get this text message alert system in place. May 7th is when the RFP recommendation will be made. May 8th is where they are having a water conservation subcommittee. Our next water development meeting is not until May 15. And that is because at this point, we don't feel it necessary to meet every week or every 2 weeks, because at this point, I think a lot of the work is left up to this RFP and what decisions come back from as a result of that. So what we positioned our next meeting to be after this RFP recommendation is made. That way we can discuss the RFP proposal in detail, not only who we're going with, but the details of it. So with that being said, that's about it. It was a pretty simple meeting. There wasn't, we didn't get off topic too much, and we didn't have too many things to discuss, honestly, and we won't for the next month or two until we engage more in this RFP for the additional water source. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Don. Resolution number 518, water conservation. Brian, do you want to hit the highlights?
Try to. This is for discussion and review. There's a couple of things that we need some input on. The Water Conservation Committee and the Water Committee is recommending that we go to a 3-tiered watering system. Green designation means even odd watering. So I think everybody understands that those with odd addresses water on odd days. Even addresses water on even days. No water in between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. If water consumption or water production at the water treatment plant meets or exceeds 1.6 million gallons per day for 3 consecutive days, we go to yellow. And that is watering 1 day a week based upon the last digit of the address. So 0 or 1 would be Monday, 2 or 3 on Tuesday, 4 or 5 on Wednesday, 6 or 7 on Thursday, 8 or 9 on Fridays, no watering on Saturday or Sunday. Again, watering would be prohibited from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. We would also move from green to yellow if we exceeded 2 million gallons in 1 day. This gets back to notices would have to be sent out, Facebook, texts, media as much as we can. So there's something that we're working on with the text item and Facebook. You would stay in yellow if consumption was less than 1.6 million gallons a day for 10 days. We would revert back to green. Hopefully, we don't need to go to red. But if we continue to exceed 1.6 million gallons per day for 7 consecutive days, we would move to red, which is the watering ban. Or if we hit 2 million gallons a day for another day, we would move to the watering ban, red designation. Again, we would revert to yellow if we were below 1.6 million gallons a day for 10 days. We would revert back to yellow. So there's going to be some communication that we need to get out. That's why we looked at the 7 consecutive days to go to a red. Give some time for folks to realize what's going on, us to get the message out, gives them some time to react, unless just in case they're gone. And if we hit 2 reds in 1 calendar year, watering would be banned until September 15th. Now you look at that and you're looking at probably close to a month in order to hit 2 reds. So I do not anticipate that happening. And then same as last time, Raleigh or the Public Works Director and myself could grant written exceptions for new sod, new seed, etc. And then the thing that we need to talk about is the penalties. Recommendation is first offense, a written warning, a door hanger, stating the time and date that the violation occurred. Second offense would be a $100 fine. Third offense would be $200. Fourth offense would be $300. Fifth offense would be a water shutoff. We would pursue those through small claims court. Other than that, we really don't have a way to collect.
That was going to be my question. What's the enforcement arm here? I mean, who's actually producing the fine? Is someone going to the door and writing a citation?
Well, those are some of the things that we need to work out with the city attorney as to how we're going to do the enforcement. If you remember last year, currently in our ordinance, this fine system is not authorized. We have two enforcement mechanisms in our current ordinance. One is a misdemeanor, or two, we shut the water off. So we'll need to amend the ordinance if you want to move down this road or proceed to this process, and then we'll need to figure out who's going to write those fines or write those tickets.
I think we certainly do need to move forward with this, and I like it. You know, the one thing that I will say in retrospect to last year, you know, I think the facts proved ourselves last year that we can do this if we have to, and I don't think we'd ever get to the point where we did last year. But it's truly the enforcement that's going to be the driver here. We need to make sure that we have that enforcement arm in place, because without that, the ordinance or the resolution isn't worth the paper it's written on. So we just have to make sure that once we do get it down, that we are following it. So I guess that would be my question is, how are we going to do that? Moving forward, are we going to send an officer to the door? Are we going to, you know, Lisa, I guess
Well, right now, the way, excuse me, your ordinance is written is the police department has the ability to enforce. And the enforcement is through a misdemeanor through the court system after the police write their citation. So we can change that. We've got to even implement the resolution on doing 1 day a week. We have to change the ordinance because our ordinance doesn't even permit that. The ordinance permits different things, just not that, for example. It permits the odd even, it permits nothing. But we have permits the first and the 15th. So we're going to have to change the ordinance. So there is no resolution that we're adopting tonight.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Because we first have to go through the ordinance changes to work on what you want, and that's come up. And just to remind the public, our odd even is in effect. So despite the fact that we're working on a new resolution, we do have an effect resolution right now on odd even.
Your mic's not on.
So,
Going back to the issue of enforcement, we can certainly do the enforcement through a small claims. We could continue to do the enforcement through a criminal or misdemeanor process through the courts. We don't have, like some of the bigger cities have, a whole enforcement proceeding with due process, like Sioux Falls has their whole code enforcement court. We don't have that. And we don't have it in part because it's expensive to do that. And so we, for most everything, have a system in which if there's a violation of something, it's a violation of an ordinance that's prosecuted through the misdemeanor courts. And then the court takes care of the due process. So we can certainly go through the small claims procedure. There's the ability to file it. It's inexpensive. You end up getting, you know, the defendant, homeowner can pull it out and say, I want a jury trial, which you can't get in a misdemeanor necessarily for what we're dealing with. So there's a lot of differences, but I just need to know what you want done. Small claims is a pretty inexpensive procedure. We sit there, we present the case to the court makes the decision, then you get a judgment, and then you have to collect on the judgment like you would have to with any type of judgment. The enforcement of the misdemeanor, you know, that goes on your record, and there's a little more power behind. If you don't pay it off by a certain date, then you can be subjected to the court's enforcement by a warrant for not paying it off. We don't have that with the small claims. The small claim procedure, you just don't pay it, you get a judgment, you got to execute on it. So there's good and bad.
My personal opinion is the small claims direction is good, but it's timely. And this being, of course, a very timely issue, is it going to give us the enforcement arm that we need during the time that we need it? You know, if we're going to take someone to small claims court for $100, I mean, that's fine, but what's going to stop them from, you know, moving on to the next level or the next level? Whereas if there was a citation issued, my personal opinion, it has more teeth. I honestly don't feel that we're going to deal with it a lot, but the fact of the matter is, if when we do put this in place, and we have to keep moving forward, in my opinion, we have to do it quickly because we are coming up onto that time of the year. One of these days, the grass is actually going to be green and not covered with snow. We need to have this in place so we're not looking like we looked last year. So I guess that's my personal opinion. I think the small claims process has its positives, I guess. I just think it would be timely.
So last year, how did we notify them that they were in violation?
We placed an orange sign in their yard.
Is that pretty effective?
Yes, very effective.
I mean, I like the idea of putting it on the door, but honestly, I don't use my front door, and it might embarrass some people, but quite honestly, if they aren't on to knowing that we are doing a program by now, they are living in a cave, I mean, honestly. So I'm not really opposed to somebody being embarrassed. Now, God forbid it's my husband, because it could very well be, but I'm not opposed to doing the orange sign again.
Yeah, so just to kind of remind the public that's watching this meeting or via video at home, this system, I know that it sounds somewhat confusing, the orange and yellow and 3 days and,
It's actually
but this is structured after successful conservation programs that have a substantial return on investment, if you will, okay? They've seen significant changes because of this, as much as a 30% reduction. So that's huge. I think I said maybe at our last meeting, if we see a 15% reduction, that is really going to change things for us. It's really going to give us some of the leeway that we need. I agree. We probably will not need to utilize some of the fine system. I personally, I jokingly with Brian and Paul said we should set up a betting pool on this. I don't know that we'll see yellow. We may, but with the conservation program in place, we may not see yellow. I just want to remind folks that we may, and don't get me wrong, but I have faith. As far as enforcing this goes, aside from, I'm not talking about collecting money, but I'm talking about going out and distributing the signs or notices and or the fines. Again, Sioux Falls has a program where they have a department, they have a training, program in place where they train individuals. I don't want to tie up the police department to go out and monitor lawn sprinklers.
Oh, I agree.
In fact, we have an individual on the Water Development Committee that is volunteered to fulfill this position. We'll probably need more than one individual, but I would like to empower somebody from our community to be able to make that happen, to be able to distribute those notices, whether it's a notice, you take a picture so you have proof, maybe write the fine if you need to, but I'm just throwing this out there. I'd like to be able to set up, and if we need to as the Water Development Committee, or if we need to as the Conservation Subcommittee, set up a training program for that individual or for those individuals, I'll be happy to make sure that gets done. But that's just my thought. I'd like to see us be able to change the ordinance so that we can empower somebody to patrol, a few hours a day or whatever we decide. That's my thoughts, and I'd like to hear yours.
I just have one question and one thought. First question is more for Lisa. When I think about the fines, obviously the best way, optimal, but is likely not doable, is just added as a fee or a penalty on their water bill. Thus, they have to pay it, else the water's getting shut off, right? If there's any way we can structure it as an additional fee, like a enforcement fee or an overage fee or whatever we want to call it.
I have to look at that, the statute specific about fee setting structure.
Right.
I don't know that we could put that on the water bill, but I can look at that.
Yeah.
So I'll look
Whether it's a penalty or fee, but that's the easiest way to collect it, right? It's just an added, yeah. And I guess sounds like I'm in the minority, but in terms of the orange sign, I'm not for it. I think about the people that are probably subject to this, that are actually are watering on the days they shouldn't. I'd say 90% were likely good people, good citizens that are just making a mistake, making an oversight. And then, for us to put an orange sign in their yard is essentially publicly shaming them. I think that's going too far. To me, it rings the exact same thing that, some of these schools are getting slapped on their hands with the lunch shaming programs, putting the stamps on kids' hands. It just seems like too big a step for me when I'm confident that the vast, vast, vast majority of the people making this simple mistake are very good citizens and good people. So.
And John, on that point, on that point, we do post warning notices that are a little bit bigger on front doors instead of just like a door hanger. So that may be a compromise where we do a posting of you know, an 8x10 piece of paper, 8x12 piece of paper that's orange in the front door, and they may see it instead of a.
I could live with that.
And also, as long as we're trying to get a hold of these folks too, because, you know, like we've talked about, some of these folks will be on vacation. I think there's a lot of little, yeah, absolutely. I may be one of the first ones to, you know, I mean, if I set my system to water, you know, whatever it is, every other day, and the calendar changes from 30 to 31 days and I'm off, you know, I'll be the first to admit, I understand what you're saying. There's going to be people that violate this that had no idea they were violating it and will be very upset at the fact that they violated it because they're very self-conscious. You know, I absolutely understand that.
I think that there'll be less of those people than we think, though, because this has become such a hot topic over the
I
last
agree.
year that, and there's been a lot of, you know, neighbors taking care of neighbors or whatever the case may be. I know it's certainly been a hot topic in our neighborhood because there are several that have sprinkler systems, and they weren't set correctly, but they certainly are now. And I wanted to talk just briefly, Don, about what you were talking about. I think we are, you know, as far as an enforcement arm or training somebody, I think we're opening ourselves up to liability by just bringing on an individual to do that, because we are truly, in my opinion, developing a code enforcement officer is what we're doing, instead of just somebody that's out patrolling water. I think it would open us up to, well, as the city of Sioux Falls has, and they've talked about, they've got code enforcement officers that go around and they don't patrol just water resolutions, they patrol all of the code. And I certainly don't think that we have the size or the ability to do that right now. So I guess that would be my only concern with that. But
Let me throw this into the fire. And again, this is all food for thought. I don't have a set path I'm focused on. What if we had a volunteer to patrol the streets at given hours of the day, and when they see a violation, then they report that to the city or the police department, so that the police department, because essentially we're going to be asking, we're not going to say, Chief, if you see someone watering their lawn at 6, let us know, because they're not going to be patrolling the streets, right? What if we had someone that volunteered to do that, to be that line of communication for them, to say, hey, you know, we've got a violation here.
neighborhood watch program.
A neighborhood watch program. And again, maybe I'm getting in over my head, I don't know.
I have some concerns about employment law issues if you're having somebody volunteer to do a specific duty that is really within the employment duties of other people. So I think it's fine to maybe talk about people calling into the city saying, I've noticed this, and then whomever is assigned to go investigate. We can certainly, in certain circumstances, potentially write a misdemeanor and bring in the witnesses like you do for traffic offenses, that this person was this, and you can prosecute it that way with writing the misdemeanor offenses. But I have some concerns about signing up volunteers to do that. I think the public, neighbors, can call in, and that's the way we may want to have that presented to whomever is going to write the citations or misdemeanors or whatever we're going to call this.
Yeah, my first thoughts were just, you know, you hire Susie Thompson to do it, they volunteer, and the public says, oh, Susie knows these 50 people, and those 50 people never get written up. They're watering all the time. She hates these other 50 people, so those 50 people get called in every other day. Even if it's likely not reality, but that will be the perception, and that will be how people view it. The other thing I was kind of thinking of, you know, the ultimate way to design this is obviously with technology and software, and I don't know if anything exists out there where we actually can actively monitor the daily usage by address, by property, and if we notice a high usage in a day that they're not supposed to be watering, it doesn't have to be we post them on their door. It can be, you know, first couple times the system just kicks out an email or a text, and then if it continues to happen, that's when we escalate it. But to me, that's the easiest thing, and that's how you control it equally across the entire city. But I don't know if that type of technology exists.
So it does. We've actually talked about that in detail at some of our meetings. That technology does exist out there. It will be on the wish list of Brandon in the near future, I'm sure. You know, right now, you're talking a substantial cost, you know, because you do have to change quite a bit about the current system. And we looked at some very preliminary costs, and it was, you know, it's substantial, but is it worth it? Probably. And there are a lot of communities out there that utilize a program like that. I think it's a great system. But for this year, that's out of the question. Again, I'm open to suggestions, and if the attorney tells me volunteers aren't a good idea, I'll listen.
They can call in, I just don't want to.
Well, moving forward,
Well, as far as enforcement goes, we've talked about it with staff. There's a lot of folks that set their sprinklers for 4 o'clock in the morning. They're all over the place. Midnight, 4 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, the most efficient way, the police are out and about anyway, patrolling, so it's pretty easy for them if they see somebody watering, write the address down. We've talked about this, Chief. And send it into City Hall the next day, we can check on it and make sure.
Well, and
They
I
do
will-
have water meters that we can detect daily flow, hourly flow, et cetera, but you're talking between 200 and 300 bucks a pop for 3,300 meters, so you're looking at pretty close to $1 million to change out all those heads.
I will tell you, in days past, when I was part of the Brandon Police Department, and I did work an awful lot of nights, we used to send out reminder letters to people when they left their garage door open at night, which was a very positive thing. We got a lot of thank yous for that. So, you know, our officers are out there paying attention, and they're not just looking for the bad guy. I mean, if they've got time to do that, and the chief will tell us if they do or if they don't, I think that that's really the only avenue that we have. But that being said, and moving forward this conversation, you certainly, for me, Brian, you have, I like the ordinance. We just need to get that enforcement piece figured out. Let's get that figured out as quickly as we can, and let's get this resolution moving forward. So you certainly have my approval. Anybody else? He's looking for some direction here from us, guys.
I agree that to place the notice on the door size, I like what Lisa suggested. Comfortable with the police doing the enforcement. Small claims versus, you said, issue a citation, Lisa?
Yeah, the misdemeanors.
I'd prefer to go that route,
Which route?
misdemeanor.
Well, I would agree. Or you can just do like I do, not even have a sprinkler system.
Neither do I.
So, you know, it just makes it easier. But for those that, and trust me, after this last summer, I know people like their green grass. So I actually like the current, what we have currently, the misdemeanor, and then shut off and call it good, you know. I have a feeling that we're not going to be able to collect a lot of this money if we do end up having to do it. And to be honest, it's kind of confusing.
It is confusing,
You
that's
know.
why I say, I want people to understand, I realize, I think we all realize, it can be confusing, and we work with this, right, every week. You think about the person that just pays no attention to this, they water their lawn because that's what they like to do. I understand that this, and that's why I want to reassure you, it is somewhat of a confusing system, but it does work. And I'm in favor of moving forward with it.
And I agree, and confusing or not confusing, I mean, if you get to the point where you are in violation, then it is your duty to educate yourself on what the ordinance is. I mean, it's no different than saying, oh, I'm sorry, officer, I didn't realize I was doing 90 and a 35. I didn't see the sign. You know, same thing. They have, the citizens have, their due diligence is to learn what this is and understand if it applies to them. But that would be in here as far as their first warning goes.
Okay, so with this, so we need to keep moving on, but what are we doing with this? Are we going with?
No,
Right now,
I
we
mean,
just
I need to revise the ordinance,
Okay.
and we've got to do the publication, we got to go through the two, because the ordinance needs to be changed if we're doing some of these things for any number of the ways we have in here. So I'll revise the ordinance. Brian and I will work on the resolution and get you something for the next meeting for both of them.
We're moving on.
Yes, ma'am, we're moving on.
Mayor.
Okay.
Research that penalty fee thing though too, please.
Yeah, and I will, I got that done.
Okay.
Yes, Kim.
Yes, so the Conservation Committee and us at the Chamber, we're working on a publication, and I actually have the magnet of what we're trying to do, and they want to have it for the parade. So my question is if you're interested in moving forward with the red, green whatever, green, yellow, red system. I mean, is that something we can move forward with? I mean, it doesn't have the enforcement stuff on here anyways. It's just trying to get the information out. So that's my question. Can we move forward with
I think the consensus
this?
of the council was we were going to move forward with that.
Okay,
It's just the
because
enforcement.
all we're doing, yeah, on there is just, yep, explaining the stages, just as Brian just explained to you, and then giving them that option to go and sign up for those email notifications, and hopefully the text, if we can get it done this week. So I just want to make sure we're all good with that.
And hey, Kim, thank you. I didn't say this earlier, but thank you to the Conservation Subcommittee and everybody that's putting time into that. I greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Moving forward.
Would there be any problem with like making just a simple phone call to these folks and telling them they're out of compliance? I mean, I think we make it so hard. A simple phone call, now maybe they don't listen to their answering machine, but might that be the first step? And then we can use the orange sign.
Well, I mean, and forgive me if I'm wrong, Brian, but we can put down on a line item or a log that we made a phone call and left a message, but the first thing that they're going to say is we didn't get a message. You know, we have no way to confirm that. Whereas if we put a sign up, we can say, yes, we did put up a sign, or we have to have some way to confirm that we made that communication, correct? Okay, let's move forward. Item C. Water conservation budget request. This was a timely topic on Thursday, so I will start with Brian.
If you look on page 57, the first spreadsheet on the left side of the sheet, coloring books, 4x6 magnets, a toilet, and a banner. That's for the parade coming up, so about $2,200. And then they're also proposing some other giveaway items for this year, listed there: lawn sprinkler gauges, dye tablets, bags, shower timers, keychains, frisbees, etc. And then some other stuff down there on the bottom of that, on the left side, sign-up sheets, posters for coloring contests, etc. Request for this year would be $23,000 and some change, $23,600. And then in the bottom right-hand corner is future plans. That comes to $34,500.
When you say for this year, talking calendar year 17 or our budget year?
Same. We're on the calendar year.
Okay.
So who can kind of walk through these things? How do we discern the blue versus the gray versus the...
Like I said, that first upper half of the blue spreadsheet, Loyalty Day Parade, is for the parade, and then additional items throughout the year. In the bottom half of that blue spreadsheet, the gray one is kind of ongoing. Set up a booth for the Business Expo, and then educational materials, coloring contest, stand-up display similar to the one in the back of the room to put in local businesses like at Ace or Sunshine or whoever else wants to have some. Similar to what the chamber did with the awesome life-size or larger than life-size poster of the chief.
Yeah.
You just woke him up.
Yeah. So one thought I had was I'm all in favor of the parade stuff, and then maybe at least for this year we tie it back to the outdoor water conservation because we really think that's where we're going to get the most bang for our buck. So that would be more like the watering gauges versus some of the things inside the home, and maybe that's a way to give the Water Conservation Committee some direction and say hit the outdoors, and then maybe we move to the indoors. Would that be a thought?
Yeah, and again, I'm not part of the Conservation Committee, and I missed the meeting because of my daughter's birthday Thursday, but from what I understand, I would agree with that. I think we tackle one section at a time here, and if we remember, we went from 1.8, roughly 1.8 million gallons a day down to almost 1 million gallons a day. I mean, we almost dropped in half. We had at least a 40% reduction just from lawn watering. obviously, we're after the lawn watering. And if we make that our first and foremost target, I would agree with that. I'm okay with that.
Well, I want to empower this group, I really do. I want to thank them for the work that they've done, but we do have to set some stipulations here. You know, I don't want to micromanage the line items that we see here, but there are some things that do concern me. $5,500 for water saver shower timers. I think this being our first year, we have to set an amount. I don't think it's our job to micromanage what we're doing. I think giving them direction as far as we're working towards the outside this year. And then coming up with a number for them, so they've got a beginning budget for the year. This is, when we start moving into some of these things, it's going to take some time to develop it, because each community is different. So I guess I'm going to open it to discussion on what do we think that dollar amount should be.
My thought is 10,000 for this year, just to get started and to focus on the outdoor, but.
And I'd be comfortable with 10 to 12.
I'd be comfortable with about 1,500 to 2,000. Seriously, I don't know why we need all this. I don't know why we need coloring books. I'm not sure why we need a toilet for the parade, why we're just trying to focus on outdoor watering. I think 10,000 is too much for this year. I think we need to focus smaller this year and then put it into our budget for next year. I really do. We're already implementing a new watering system, and I don't know, that's my thoughts. I don't think we need to be spending that kind of money yet this year.
I am closer to Joe's number than I am the other ones. The 4x6 magnet looks awesome to me. I think that makes perfect sense, because that's how people. That makes perfect sense. That's how people keep track. That's an easy reference. It's hanging on the fridge. Some of these other items are obviously geared toward kids, which I think makes sense in the long run. But for getting the message out there initially, I don't know if you're getting the bang for the buck. And then, I guess the other thing I'd like to understand is, how is this different, or what other items are we including or missing? Because we've been talking about water conservationism for several years. I know prior to the water committee kind of being formed, that the city actually had a plan in place to get the word out to the community on water conservation. I prefer that we dust some of that off and understand what we were planning there and how that differs from this, because I don't recall that we were going to do this level of kind of marketing and expense tied with some of those items. And I don't recall all the specifics around those, but I do know that we had plans there.
Well, that being said, I'm the only one that hasn't been heard from as far as the budget goes. Listening to what everybody's said here tonight, I am going to make a motion to approve a $5,000 budget for the Water Conservation Committee.
I will second.
Can I just add one more comment?
Absolutely.
I mean, we've got good momentum going with the Water Committee, the Water Conservation Committee. I would hate to see us set that back by a dollar amount. That's why I'd be comfortable with 10. I'm just not sure 5 is enough to get that momentum going.
I'd be comfortable with 10 as well. And the other thing to remember is this has to be going this month, because this time is upon us. The watering season, we're going to be knee deep in it here soon, and it's just like anything. There's some lag time. It's going to take some time to get this word spread. So I'm just throwing another log in the fire. But this, whatever we decide on, and we'll make sure the Water Conservation Committee, and they understand this, but we'll make sure we communicate this between them and city, as we need to have this stuff up and going. I would have liked to seen it, last month, but it's just how it has played out as far as the formation of this committee. It's taken this time to get here, and I think it is vitally important that we get going on whatever we decide. But I would agree with the $10,000 mark.
Okay, well, we do have a motion and a second. So we will vote on the $5,000 motion, and if it does not pass, then we will look for a second motion. So I will call the vote. Those in favor of 5? Aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion does not carry. Opens the table again, if there is another motion.
I would make a motion for 10,000 for this year, with the emphasis on the outdoors.
Have a motion from Fish, second from Parsons. All those in favor? Opposed? Aye. So neither motion carries. There's not a majority on
Well, we
either.
gotta get some figured out tonight. I'm certainly willing to give just to make sure that this gets moving, because I agree with Don that we need to do something.
2,500.
And I,
And it's not like if you set it at 5,000, they can't come back and say, give us more, or we want to do this and this and this as well this year. So it's not like they can't come back to you.
that's why the line items are important to me. I don't want to micromanage it either, but to me, if we're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on something I don't view that we're going to get a return on, I would like to know that.
I think it's important too that we're looking at this spreadsheet and understanding that the number that is being asked for short-term is at 51,108. That's what it comes out to. So we do have to, come up with something to get these folks started. Like I said before, I want to empower them, I really do, but this is a starting point for us. Realize money doesn't come easy, folks. I mean, this is going to have to be pulled out of a fund somewhere. So just please keep that in mind. I mean, right now, this committee up here, or this council up here has been trying really hard to hold our rates, and all of this this has got to come out of a pot somewhere. So we have to understand that. We don't have just an endless account that we can write checks out of.
And I'll take that heat. Just a reminder, if we go from green to yellow, the revenue that we lose in water is extremely substantial, and it's a lot more than just $5,000 or $10,000. We're talking many, many thousands of dollars if we approach yellow. So how do we not approach yellow? Education. Education's the key. So that's why I'm in favor of the $10,000 mark, or getting as much. I agree. I think we should focus on the outdoor stuff. But and I'm sorry to interrupt, Kim, but just keep that in mind before we vote on something. Is the ultimate goal here is to keep us from going to yellow. If we go to yellow, everyone loses, including our the amount of water that we're selling, which is substantial.
I know, I just don't want to approach it from that standpoint, just because if we approach it from a financial revenue standpoint, we would never go at this system to encourage us to get down to 1.2, 1.3 million gallons. If you want to optimize your revenues, then you'd say, oh, okay, I want to be at 1.5999 at every single day. This whole thing of getting everybody down to green and averaging 1.3 is in itself lowering the revenue. So saying that, so that's why I just wouldn't say going to yellow, we're going to lose revenue. In general, we're trying to stabilize this, make it so our long-term expenses can be managed, can be minimized, so that we can push off some of those costs to future years when we have the dollars for them. So.
Kim Serwick, I didn't say mine last time, 1808 South Parkview Boulevard. I am not on the Water Conservation Committee, but I have been working with them because of the magnets, this and such. I do just want to say we literally this week are trying to get all of this stuff ordered for the parade, so we need to have something. I see that is the 2,150. And if I could explain to you, the toilet is to get the attention, to get people to sign up. No, yep. But the coloring books, the 4x6 magnets, the toilet, and the banner, that again, that's all the parade. And then the goal then, from what I talked to them about, and I think they're still on this idea, is we're going to have a sign-up form to win that toilet. When they turn that form in, we also have the address, their name, and they will get a kit that has the little watering gauge in it, which is that 2800, and the dye tablets for their toilet, along with, again, that magnet piece. So I guess I would go back to, I think if you guys would at least do the 5,000, we'd be right there in getting that stuff. So if they could at least get the 5,000, we could cover the things that they're talking about right now. And that would leave nothing else for the rest of this year, but at least they'd have that money to get moving, because again, we're trying to get this stuff ordered this week so that we have it for the parade. So.
I know we have to be careful with our money, but I just don't think that we can. They've spent hours on this, and I don't think that they're trying to take advantage of the city. I still think that if we say we want outdoor direction. That would drop out the dye tablets. That's an indoor thing. Should we go back to the water gauges and the stuff for the parade? I just think that we need to give them some latitude with some guidelines.
I agree, Barb. And as I said at the beginning, I want to empower this group because they have done a great job, and I want them to continue to do that. And what you're seeing up here, folks, is called democracy. This is what we do. This is how we come to decisions. So I appreciate the conversation greatly. But that being said, we need to come up with a solution tonight. These folks need something moving forward. So, Mr. Wakefield.
Tim Wakefield, 2821 East Daybreak Circle. I know Barb has talked a lot about outdoor, and the toilet really doesn't make sense with outdoor. It might not be a bad idea to change that line item to a sprinkler system controller or something like that as a giveaway. That's going to help us save a lot of water, and I would think that'd be about the same ballpark. So maybe we just strike out the line item. This year's not big into toilets, and maybe that's not the message we want to send, but maybe it's something more specific to outdoor conservation, whether it's a sprinkler timer system or something like that, just to throw an idea out to you guys. So
I agree.
Thank you.
I think we
I know,
empower.
it's not the gold seat heated. I think we talked about the heated seat.
Hey,
and
Hey, the main problem I have with that is Paul Sano agreed that he would sit on that toilet in the parade float. So, you know, if we and throw out Tootsie Rolls. So if we throw that idea out, I don't know.
Baby Ruths. And I appreciate that, Tim. Thank you. I, again, would like to empower the group to make that decision, but we do need to come up with a dollar amount. So I will open it for another motion.
So what do we think about 7,500?
Is that a motion?
That's a motion. I'll make a
Second.
motion for $7,500 for the remainder of this year. That's a start. Keeping in mind if we need to change it, we could, but
I'll second that motion. We have a motion and a second for $7,500. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We should need a roll call. Awesome, okay. Okay. Item D, water main adjustment on Hemlock. Pages 59 through 61.
The Development Foundation is starting improvements into the Rolvang Industrial Park north of Hemlock, north of Marmon. As part of that is a proposed rail spur that will cross Hemlock and go into the industrial park. They've run into a couple of situations. One, they have to relocate or lower two gas mains that are outside of the street right of way. And then it's come to their attention that there are two water mains, one in the south ditch which belongs to MCWC and one in the north ditch which belongs to the city of Brandon. Railroad policy regulations, design guidelines require piping that is less than 10 feet below the level of the tracks to be encased in a casing pipe. It makes sense. If that water main would break, we don't want to have to dig up the tracks to fix our water main. It would be in a pipe. You just pull the old pipe out, put the new pipe in essence, and you're good to go. They received 3 quotes. The first one from Gator Brothers to do both the MCWC and the city of Brandon's. They're both listed. Ours is a 12-inch, MCWC's is an 8-inch. Our share of that $72,000 is approximately $38,000. And then Kempf and First Rate are higher than that. So I'm recommending that we go ahead and pay to encase our water main. I look at this very similar to an oversized charge. When a developer puts in a subdivision, our minimum main size is 6 inches. We may need that main upsized in that subdivision to 12 for future growth outside of that subdivision. We pay to increase that size from 6 to 12. So in my mind, this is the same, and it's protecting our asset, the water main. So $38,600, I think. $38,505 for Gator Brothers is our portion of the piping or the casing cost.
Excuse me.
Can I just add something, Brian? And I appreciate everybody considering this, and just so everybody knows, I'm on the Development Foundation Board, Secretary Treasurer. It's not a paid position, so I'll ask the council tonight, if you want me to abstain from voting, I will, but I have no skin in the game. I don't gain anything financially, nothing. But I can tell you, and Barb's heard this, Brian's heard this, we're getting really tight on our budget because of these utility surprises. And to the effect of now we're getting the rail engineers conflicting reports to the point that I've gone to Lisa and she's going to do some research on that rural water line because I'm just not convinced that we have to pay it when it only serves 2 people. But again, I'll leave that up to Lisa, the council tonight. If you all want me to abstain, I certainly will. But again, there's no financial gain for myself. But I am going to support the city paying for this because literally we're going to run out of money.
I certainly do not see a conflict here, Mr. Parsons, and my personal opinion is you do not need to abstain from this vote. If you choose to, that would be completely up to you, but it is my opinion you do not need to abstain from this vote.
So Chuck, I appreciate that. I talked to Brian about this today as well. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve the city paying for our portion of this.
I'll second that motion. So we have a motion from Wells, second from myself.
Any other comments regarding me abstaining? Lisa, you have any?
I don't think there's any legal conflict of interest by which you need to abstain.
Mr. Parsons, did you choose to abstain? I will. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I appreciate your integrity, Chuck.
Yes, Chuck.
All right, I've been waiting for this one.
Me too. So exciting.
Item number E, 2017 Drinking Water Report. If I'm not mistaken, this is the 17th year in a row we've gotten this report. So, go ahead, Ryan.
Well, it's our annual water report that we get from the state based upon all of our testing requirements. Once again, as you said, we passed for 17 years in a row. It notes all of the contaminants that are in our water, from alpha emitters, combined radium fluoride, haloacidic acids, nitrates, total coliform, total trihalomethanes, etc., all well below the limits. So we will get that out in the utility billings probably in May or June.
So can you explain the radium one, please?
Highest level detected was 2. Highest level allowed is 5. And that's picocuries per liter for combined radium, which is radium-226 and 228.
I was just going to say, I'd rephrase from the level of contaminants to the lack thereof, in my opinion.
I want to thank our city workers too. You guys all do a fantastic job. And even through all the negative stuff that's been out there, here we are. You know, we've been congratulated once again, and 17 years in a row is kudos to everybody. Kudos to the staff, kudos to our engineer, kudos to everybody. You know, positive does win over. Positive wins over negative anytime, and by God, it did it again this time. So congratulations.
And the other thing is, most people have a water softener, I'm not sure everybody does, but if we have a water softener that also does take out part of that, am I correct in that?
Correct. Your typical IO, ion exchange water softener, removes 80 to 90% of the radium that's left in the water. Now, that has to be hooked up to your drinking water part. An RO system will remove also 90+% as well. So there are alternatives out there.
Well, I want to go on record to say thank you to the staff. And through all the smoke and mirrors, you know, it's very, very difficult to go out and find a perfect product anywhere. That being said, I'm proud of what we've done here in Brandon. I'm proud of the work that this council has done, and I'm proud that we're moving forward. So congratulations to the city of Brandon for, again, winning this award.
Yeah, and Raleigh's not here, I don't think, tonight, but we not only did we have the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources at our meeting, but we, as a committee, we've toured the water plant, and they got a taste of how much work goes into sampling, a lot more than I thought before we began this committee. So, I mean, I'm grateful, again, that this committee has been a great educational tool, but I do want to say, yes, thank you to city staff. More work goes into this than we realize as far as water sampling goes.
It doesn't just happen.
It doesn't just happen once a month. It's very early in the morning every day. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and again, thanks to city and staff.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we need to kind of broaden that also, because it's not just the city and staff that have gotten us to the point where we are. There have been a multitude of people, you know, whether it be our engineers, whether it be the consultants that we've had, whatever in the past. You know, this is a combined effort by an awful lot of people. And there's been, within the city, there's been a focus on what we haven't done. And I just want to say congratulations to everybody that's been involved to get us to where we are today. So thank you. Moving forward, item F, engineering proposal for Stockwells for the Redwood Drainage Project.
We had included in the 2018 budget a small storm sewer project on Redwood, just west of Split Rock to at least 9th Avenue. As I think everybody's aware, we've got a heck of a lot of water that comes down there when it rains. It's certainly hard on Redwood. We've had to make some significant patches there. So this is a project that would extend storm sewer up to Maywood in the future. All we're talking about this year is doing that shown on Redwood. The design would be, or the topographic survey and preliminary grade line for phases 2 and 3, up 9th and then to Maywood. But we've got $250,000 in this year's budget to do the project.
I guess I'll be the first to say anybody that has spent any time or been a resident of Brandon for any length of time that has seen a large water event come through understands that we have a significant problem in this area that we've been trying to work on for an awful long time. And if you look at the road down there, you can see to this point we still continue to need to do some work down there, because every time we have that over the ground drainage, it just tears up that street down there. So I certainly think we need to move forward.
I'll make a motion to approve the phase 1.
Second.
I have a motion from Hausman, second from Parsons to move forward with phase 1. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. For other business, I would like to welcome Mr. Major to the podium tonight. We'll have a bit of discussion, and then we will determine whether we will go into executive session after that.
You said 6:15, Brian. Maybe 6:30. Yeah, you did. Out of all fairness, he did say maybe 6:30.
Think of all the things you've learned.
Oh, I read the paper, so I knew most of that. But anyway, so my name is Jay Major. I'm the president and CEO of MedStar Paramedic Ambulance, MedStar Dirt Track Rescue Team, and MedStar Transit Services. Just another call. So the purpose of being here, and there's a lot of it I can't say here in public. It's proprietary information with our company. But I want to start off because I'm not sure that everybody here kind of knows the history. And the history, we started back in 2000. And in 2000 to 2007, we had a transfer service in this town. But we fought to be the 911 provider. And it was a long uphill battle to become that 911 provider. Come 2007 or 2006, there was a vote in the city, and the vote allowed us, frankly, to be the 911 provider. We started providing 911 services in 2007. At that time, we had 3 ambulances. I think the newest was it was older, but and we had 3 vehicles, but they were all stocked and staffed the way they needed to be. From 2007 till now, we have maintained our 911 provider here in Brandon with probably, and I'm not exaggerating, the best response times in the country. You know, anywhere from 1 minute to 4 minute response time in the city of Brandon. And that's not just with one ambulance, that's with up to 6 or 7. And one ambulance goes out, we staff and stock another one in preparation for another call. Now, we didn't have to do that for the last 11 years because basically we had one ambulance that we guaranteed the city of Brandon. After that, you're on your own. But that's not the way my wife and I operate. We have a passion for what we do. The business is solely owned by my wife and myself. We don't have
an investment group that owns our business. And you business owners know what I'm talking about here. An investment group needs to make so much money every year, or they get out of that investment and go to another investment. That's what an investment group kind of does. There's going to be some things, I hope that we can go into closed session, that I want to talk to you about the last 4 or 5 months of services here in the city. I'm here to ask for a subsidy, and I'm not going to throw the number out publicly yet, but I'm sure that it will be publicized once we talk about it. And the reason for that subsidy is, since we've started the 911 services, my wife and I have subsidized the 911 system here in Brandon from day one, and we're doing it today as I'm standing here. We're subsidizing that response times ourselves. And I'm not sure that the people of Brandon, I'm not sure that anybody knows what we've been doing and the struggles that sometimes it's taken for us to provide these services that we provided on the backs of my wife and I. And we have taken our other businesses and taken the money from those businesses and put them onto the 911 side to provide these services. And so I'm going to talk, hopefully, with you in closed session, and then I'm sure we will have another live session after that is done with. But that's really all I want to say right now in the session at this point. I know that it will have to become public with everybody, and I'm good with that. But there's things that I need to tell the council that is proprietary information, and I don't believe that it's in MedStar's best interest to talk about that in public.
I appreciate that, Jay. I appreciate that. Okay, with that being said, is there anything else before the council tonight? If not, I will make a motion to take us into executive session for proprietary information. As Brian said. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.